Whenever a new set is released, people always make videos about what cards you should buy from that set. It makes sense, those cards are all shiny and new. But what about older cards that have only just become relevant thanks to the new set? By the time the set's released, and people have actually tried those cards and realised that they're good, they've usually tripled in price by then. So this video is to help you avoid that from happening with Dawn of Majesty. I'm going to go over some cards that are on the brink of being very expensive, and tell you why you might be interested in them, so that you can buy them before Dawn of Majesty is released and everyone else gets their hands on them too. The first of these groups of cards I want to go over is the Alien support, starting with Alien Kid. So if you watched my video about Alien Ogdoadics, you know why this card is good. But if you haven't seen it yet, first just go and have a look at it, but to give a quick summary, it basically lets you negate the activated effects of every special summon your opponent does. So it's a pretty powerful floodgate. Now this card kind of fits all the criteria for becoming expensive soon. It was only printed once, back in Crimson Crisis, which was over 10 years ago, and there just aren't very many left. Now I go by Card Market because I live in Europe, but on that website, there's only 127 left of them right now, so there's not too much of a supply. Also, there have been a few spikes in prices already, like when the Alien support was first announced, so all the cheapest copies that were going for a few cents have already gone. Looking at English copies available, there's only a few that are available for less than €2, and then it shoots up into around 3, 4 or even €5. As soon as Dawn of Majesty is released, and people try and use the Alien support, all the cheapest copies of this card are just going to disappear straight away, and you'll be left needing to buy it for around €5 or more if you want to get your hands on one. So definitely pick this one up before it really gets out of control. To complement the Alien support, now's probably a good time to pick up the Ogdoadic monsters, especially their 3 boss monsters, the King, the Queen and the Overlord. They're at an all-time low at the moment, so it's quite a good time to pick them up if you ever plan on building some kind of reptile deck. I don't really see them ever getting any cheaper than they are now, and reptiles are only going to get better both with Dawn of Majesty and then later on with Burst of Destiny. So if you're interested in that deck, now's a good time to get them. The second group of cards I want to talk about is the Chronomaly support. Now Dawn of Majesty is releasing a few more Chronomaly cards, which is putting a spotlight on the deck, meaning that people are going to buy the old Chronomaly cards that are actually useful, and that's going to make it hard to build if you haven't gotten them already. There's a few in particular that risk becoming very expensive soon, starting with Chronomaly Nebrodisc. Now there's still quite a few copies of this left, it's currently sitting at 680 copies, but it was a secret rare and has only been printed once, so there's quite a lot of demand for that one copy. Now I haven't actually played Chronomalys, but its normal summon just lets you search any Chronomaly card, so I'm pretty sure this is a 3 of in most Chronomaly decks. That just means there's 3 times as many people that are going to buy them, and they're going to become expensive 3 times faster. Looking at Card Market prices, the cheapest ones are sitting at around €3 now, and the cheapest playset is at almost €4. Those are going to start going pretty quickly soon, and no one really wants to spend €15 on a playset of Chronomaly cards, so try and get these fairly quickly if you want to play Chronomalys. Another Chronomaly that might get expensive is Chronomaly Atlantis. Now the cheapest copy, which is a common, still has a few available for under €1, but those are starting to run out. There also aren't very many English versions available, if you try to keep your deck all in English. So if this card is important for your Chronomaly deck, make sure you get it fairly soon. Similarly, the Chaos version of that card is also shooting up in price. Neither of those cards seem that good to me, but I have seen people try and put them in their Chronomaly decks, so I'm just warning you, if you want them, both number 6 Xyz monsters are going up in price, so you should pick them up fairly soon. Finally, for the last of the Chronomalys, there's Chronomaly Crystal Chrononaut. Now reading this card's effects, it really does not seem very good, but for some reason people are actually buying it, and it's getting harder and harder to find one for under €1. Hopefully because of the fact that it's not too useful, it will stabilise in price at around €1, but there's also only just over 100 copies left of it, so if it becomes useful as some kind of rank up target, you probably should get one now. Another group of cards that's getting support in Dawn of Majesty is the Gusto archetype. Now before I go into too much detail, I do want to make a little side note about their future reprints. You see, in November, the TCG is going to print Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1, which says it's going to reprint cards from the first 4 Hidden Arsenal sets. Now none of the 3 cards I'm about to mention are actually from those first 4, but they're actually from Hidden Arsenal 5 and 6. All this means is that if you're not particularly in a hurry to play a guest day set, you can just wait and see if the TCG ever announces Hidden Arsenal Chapter 2, because they'll be reprinted there if that ever does happen. But if you want these cards anytime soon, you should probably have a look at them now. The first of the 3 guest day cards is Digestes Freeze. Freeze? What a name. Anyway, this card was printed twice, but the secret rare is actually the cheaper version of the 2. There are only 213 left right now, and the cheapest is 250, with the rest of them rapidly climbing up to the 450 kind of range. Seems like if you wanted to play a pure guest day deck, this is one of their more important synchros, so look into this one before you try and build a guest day deck and realise it's going to cost you €6 or more just to get one of their synchros. The second one is Calm Serenity of Guest Day. It's in basically the exact same situation of the other card I just talked about. There's around 200 left, the first few being around €2, but then the rest of them being around 4 or more. When you have a quick look at its effects, it says draw 1 card, so I feel like that's enough for people to be interested in it. Finally, they have an Xyz monster, Digeste Phoenix. Now this card really does not have a very good effect at all, but for some reason this card has kept a fairly high price, and it might only just go up with Dawn of Majesty. If you don't actually need this in your guest day deck, you probably don't need to bother with this one, but I thought I'd mention it just in case it is somehow really useful. A second Ancient Guardian deck that might become expensive is the Solfachords. In Dawn of Majesty, they get GranSolfachord Musecia, which is going to do a lot for the deck, so if it starts to actually see any success, the 2 expensive cards in the deck, Fancier and Coolia, are going to go up quite a lot more than they are right now. At the moment, both of them are hovering at around €5 each, but they definitely risk costing a lot more if the deck does become good thanks to the Link 2. If you're interested in playing pendulums, it's probably a good time to pick up the Solfachord engine. Now on to some TCG exclusive stuff. There's one card in particular that some people have been asking to be imported for years, and that's Trickstar Festival. Trickstars were actually a meta deck a few years ago, and this card adds a lot to the deck, albeit in a different playstyle to the one that made them meta. I still think it means that a lot of people that were interested in Trickstars will try and come back to the deck, and give it another go now that it finally has its support. Now there's one card you really need for Trickstars, and that's Trickstar Candina. On normal summon, it's a searcher for anything in the deck, which means you're going to play 3, and anyone who has any interest in Trickstars is also going to do that too. Luckily, Trickstar Candina does have 4 printings, so there's quite a lot of versions available. But even the Megaton version, which is the most common, only has a few English copies left for under €2, and the first playset of 3 is listing them at $2.50 each. Now, I don't think that Trickstar Festival is going to suddenly make Trickstars meta again, but it is going to bring a new wave of interest in the deck, so if you're also interested in it, make sure you at least pick up Candinas before they get too expensive. Finally, we got to see the new TCG exclusive archetype, which was an insect type deck called Beetroopers. Now that there's actually a competent insect deck, it means that some of the old insect support that was just waiting for a good home has finally found one, and people will actually start buying it. The most obvious of those is Cocoon of Ultra Evolution. It was only printed twice, both in Legendary Duelist sets, and the cheapest printing right now is hovering at around €1. Now, if you don't actually know why you would want Cocoon of Ultra Evolution in your Beetrooper deck, I've made a video that shows some pretty good combos that you can do with it. And so if Beetroopers do actually start getting used a lot, people are going to want this card. Also, don't forget that Beetroopers are getting another wave of support fairly soon, so if they weren't good enough to make them go up in price just as the first wave, the second wave might be what pushes them over the edge. If you have any interest in building insect decks, you should get your Cocoon of Ultra Evolutions because they are on an upwards trend, and they might start costing quite a fair bit for a card that you'd want a playset of. So that's it for the cards that I think you should get from Dawn of Majesty before they become too expensive. Will you be buying any of these cards? Or did I miss out some particularly important ones? Let me know in the comments down below. If you think this video helped you, give it a like and subscribe because I might do more of these in the future. Other than that, happy dueling!